Tony Kinnett.
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 Host of the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Let's get down to business.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
CYTV here on the Daily Signal.
I'm going to level with you. I'm in a pretty good mood after today. And I'm in a good mood after today for a couple of key reasons. So for those of you who have never tuned into the show, you have no idea who I am. I am a former science teacher, specifically anatomy and physiology, biology, and I despise deeply those who would lie to children and suggest to them boys can become girls, girls can become boys. We can mess with your endocrine system, hormones, surgeries, whatever, however you want. The science says that you can be trans, and that was garbage then. It was a lie then. And now the American Medical Association is backing off of their recommendation that you can just lop organs off of children, sterilize them, mutilate them, because why? They've developed a heart? Oh, maybe the Grinch suddenly discovered the meaning of the Who's singing around the tree? No, absolutely not. The reason the American Medical Association has suddenly stopped recommending a ton of hormonal treatments, a ton of surgeries, and all other kinds of stuff is because trial lawyers are now for the first time winning huge cases in which a person who received gender-affirming care, allow me to give you a bit of advice. You follow any outlet that uses the term gender-affirming care for the mutilation of an individual's anatomy or the altering of a person's physiology via hormonal treatments, you need to find a better publication. We're going to talk about that with the Washington Post in a few seconds. But to finish this particular point, trial lawyers representing clients who were mutilated during their teenage years are now winning major lawsuits against medical organizations, insurance companies, against their physicians who recommended, covered, and performed these procedures. The plastic surgeons, whatever, conglomerate, union, whatever it's called, has also said that, yeah, well, they'll do this stuff on adults from now on, but not kids, because, you know, they can be sued for it. So a big womp womp to all of the pro-trans crying, mourning, sad, weeping people in the country. Like, for example, Pramila Jayapal, who, again, in committee, makes it a point to just lose her mind over the idea that children may not be sterilized.
I am just so tired of the way that you target trans people in this country. I don't think you, I don't know if you've talked to a trans person. I don't know if you have family members who are trans.
So far, so good from Pramila, losing it, getting real weepy already. Good stuff.
But it puts people in very real danger.
That's true. Affirming mental illness, telling a person who is schizophrenic you can also hear the toaster talking is a very bad thing, because then people tend to do the kind of mentally ill things that come with being mentally ill. And I say that, by the way, given the severe mental illness crisis in this country that have resulted in not just self-harm and not just a ton of successful suicides, but a ton of horrible and failed suicides that have left individuals maimed and in pain for the rest of their lives. Affirming mental illness isn't special. The idea that, oh, you have someone who's don't walk around saying, yeah, I have depressed people in my family. I just tell them, finish the job. My God, no, you don't say anything like that.
It heightens people's fears of trans people. There's nothing to fear from trans people. Just get to know some. This is what happened with gay marriage early on, with marriage equality. People were like, oh my God, can't possibly tolerate marriage equality. But then guess what? You started to realize that we're all just people. But
I mean, that is true. We are all just people. I hear you. I agree. We are all just people. But the idea that we all are just people means that all behavior is the same. All behavior is good. No one's responsible for anything. We just go throughout life, slapping affirmation on everybody, and nothing bad's going to happen is a foolish idea that has resulted in very bad consequences. Exhibit B, the reason that I am particularly pleased today, the Washington Post. The Washington Post has, well, let's just say gone through a bit of a downsizing. A particularly rough downsizing. They cut 1/3 of its workforce today. Over 300 journalists on their team, specifically their sports, their books, their local news, and their international news desks. Now, you may say, Tony, why am I supposed to care if they laid off their international news desk people? Oh, you remember when they called members of ISIS and Hamas who died austere scholars instead of, terrorists? That crew. Oh, remember when they were reviewing books like Genderqueer and said, oh, it's totally fine for everybody. There's no child pornography in here except the explicit graphic images of child pornography. And I have a principle that the Washington Post, whose entire outlet laughed with glee as individuals on the right, not just the far right, but like the center-right independents, were kicked off of social media, were kicked out of various newsrooms and outlets, and they said things like, learn to code. I do not feel bad for anyone over at the Washington Post or, God willing, the rest of the 2/3 of that failing publication and its other liberal benchmark publications like the New York Times, for example. But to put this quite clearly, there are some out there who suggest that it's very, very bad. How dare you suggest that it's funny that a lot of Washington Post employees, who, by the way, after Jeffrey Bezos bought the publication, then a bunch of Washington Post employees encouraged people to stop buying memberships to the outlet, stop giving them money. And you know what happened? People stopped giving them money, which means the Washington Post had less money to prop up its failed journalistic sections. I know, you and I, we all turn to the Washington Post for incredible, in-depth sports reporting. I think if I was playing in a professional sport league of any kind, actually, a friend of mine was just made a starting forward for Milwaukee's soccer team. I'll have to ask him, if the Washington Post comes up and asks you for a comment, how quickly are you going to jump through the nearest window? So a lot of pro-clutching going on. How could you say that people shouldn't, this is not their fault. They're such wonderful people. Alas. Let's get into some real news that affects you, not the toilet paper, which will now contain far fewer pages if you purchase Washington Post brand. Fistfights, arrests, protests, roadblocks. The immigration debate in the country continues. And to be very, very clear, right now what you are seeing is a war for public opinion. And the actors involved, which were boisterous versus boisterous. The Trump administration sending in Kristi Noem immediately, judge, jury, executioner, whenever there was a type of controversy. That has now been tamped back. Now you have Tom Homan giving 7:30 a.m. press briefings, which are something to behold for sure. The fights, arrests, and individuals over on the left side of the aisle who have taken to ICE Watch and documenting these kinds of ICE arrests of immigration law around the country are acting about as you'd expect. This is from Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. The screaming and the yelling and the catcalling is, still out in the public.
Dirtbags! Dirtbags!
Now, I'll give her credit, although the fact, she's annoying like a lot of other people. At least dirtbag is a more creative word than the one or two other four-letter words that have often been shouted all over these videos, making them really difficult to censor for FCC Spectrum Air.
Get a real job! Dirtbags!
Back up! Back up! Back the
Dirtbags!
Back up!
So this individual tried to get in the car, wouldn't get out, wouldn't comply with officers. So now the federal agents are pulling them out. And there's the screaming, because there's always the lady off to the side screaming, "Ah, the horror!"
Get out of my car! Show your faces! Show your faces!
Okay, this kind of behavior does not make the left look good. It doesn't. Whoever appears to be calmer in a situation and handling things like an adult, that specifically is what Americans are going to gravitate towards. And what you're already seeing in the polling this week is a shift away from the low point in January for the Trump administration on immigration customs enforcement. Now that you have individuals that are running out acting like complete and utter idiots, screaming, "Get a real job," while they are not at a job. They are out screaming at law enforcement all day. It's not going to go the way that they think. In Los Angeles, they're protesting against fascism. So stunning, so brave.
And right now, they're operating like they are above the law. We're here to challenge a whole system that protects institutions instead of the people who are making the city great. We don't just cut the lead.
They always have the ASL person. I'm always amazed at how diversified. Leftist protests and press conferences are single-handedly funding ASL majors around the country.
We kill the poison at the root.
Radio crew will let you guys swing over to commercial. We're going to continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, meanwhile, this is, again, a protest. Notice there's no burning things down. There's no acting stupidly at this particular moment. I do enjoy that they're claiming fascism is here. We're under Nazi rule. Guys, the Nazis, fascists throughout history, do not let counter protests form at all. In a fascist country, you do not get to come out in front and say, yeah, Chairman Z's just like Winnie the Pooh. He's awful. I hate him. You don't get to get out there in China and do that. You don't get to get out in Russia and denounce Vladimir Putin. It's not allowed. You will be thrown in prison if you are lucky. In the United States, despite half the country calling Republicans fascists, Nazis, whatever you might have, they're perfectly fine, unless you, again, violate federal law. Now, there are some individuals that are taking some rather fascist approaches and setting up roadblocks and demanding people to prove they're not federal law enforcement. That's what's happening in Minneapolis, for example.
We are literally creating a place that we know who's coming and going in and out of our neighborhoods.
So they're creating roadblocks to stop vehicles and check their papers to make sure they're not ICE, using pallets of wood, a couple of stolen traffic cones, and what appears to be a really large, one of those little pizza plastic clippy things that you find in Papa John's pizza boxes. So this is the amazing road fortification roadblocks that are being set up by leftist protesters. But what the leftist said at the very beginning is rather key. You'll notice that she said, this is really good because now we can know who is and isn't coming in and out of our neighborhood. Let's play that one more time here.
In the middle of the road at 32nd and Cedar Avenue.
We are literally creating a place that we know who's coming and going in and out of our neighborhoods.
Wow, it's almost like it's some kind of a control of the border so that you vet those that are coming into an area around you and your loved ones.
In the middle of the road at 32nd and Cedar Avenue, a makeshift roadblock turned this intersection into a roundabout. Cars slowed as drivers noticed, some honked, others asked questions, and one man brought food for the people standing watch.
I'm sorry, I just love the local anchors just trying so hard to simp after any left-wing cause that they can. But alas, putting that aside for just a moment here, where are the local police? I was told the local police were going to, enforce the law. Jacob Fry made it clear. He said, we're not going to enforce federal immigration law. We're going to enforce our own laws. It is illegal in the city of Minneapolis to obstruct an intersection. It is illegal unless you have a permit from the city, which we've checked. These people do not. Again, people in the rest of the country are watching. You see buses of protesters in Boston.
Okay, people, here's the proof they're busting them in. You see? See the bus?
San Francisco, local 39. Okay.
And then you have the legislators over in Congress. It's a really weird thing. It's a very strange maneuver throughout all of this to attach the immigration customs enforcement actions, which were sort of working for the left, because again, ugly arrests on TV, people don't like the chaos, to now suggesting that any immigration action at all is a tantamount to fascism. Also, voter ID is terribly evil. They're going after individuals who are just innocently violating the law. Here's Senator Adam Schiff, California.
So is ICE operating any differently now that Greg Bovino has been pushed out? It certainly doesn't look like it. This is what recently happened in North Hills to Carlos Chavez, a taco vendor who was chased on church property and detained by ICE agents. When, according to his wife, he explained that he had bronchitis and sought medical treatment in detention, they said he had to sign a form to get it. That form was his own deportation order.
His wife says that she actually spoke with him on the phone. He told her that he said to agents, I have bronchitis, I don't feel well. And they said, you want treatment? Sign this. It was a self-deportation order.
So people are losing it, I guess. Again, more protests in LA over the idea. How could they, they showed him this form and he didn't speak English and he just signed the form. My dude, that's on you. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. A lot more news to cover. It's the Tony Kinnett cast. Don't go anywhere.
is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast, where the news right now is a strange foreign policy flip-flop of the United States and Iran. Earlier today, the United States had canceled talks set for Friday with Iran over a possible de-escalation matter between the two countries, finding what the diplomats had described, at least according to Axios, as some kind of a potential off-ramp reforms that the Iranian regime could make, very, very vague from the U.S. officials. The plans now, as of right now, 7:21 p.m. Eastern time, the plans for nuclear talks in Oman on Friday are now back on all of a sudden, with one small asterisk. So urgent lobbying from Arab and Muslim leaders, according to two U.S. officials, said, quote, they asked us to keep the meeting and listen to what the Iranians have to say. We will do the meeting if they insist, but we are very, very skeptical, one official said. So 9 regional countries had pressed senior levels of the President Trump administration not to cancel the talks. And here's why. The Trump administration said, you got to stop killing people. The Iranian Islamic administration did not do so. So the Trump administration sent the armada over and had a lot of people guessing the Ayatollah went and took shelter under the bomb shelter deep underground somewhere, and now has come back up above ground, which is a very interesting move given that the U.S. Navy is getting closer and closer. There are a couple of updates on that we're going to get to in just a second. Here's the weirdest thing, though. Right now, there are 6 diplomats which have spoken to American media. 6 of those U.S. diplomats, those are U.S. officials with the Department of State, also with the president's office, have essentially said completely opposite things to different outlets. Of the 6, 4 are saying that we are continuing with talks. 2 are saying that maybe we'll have talks just about the Iranian nuclear program not going forward. It's a really, really weird situation. While at the same time, outlets like Reuters are reporting that the United States is gearing up directly for serious strike options on Iran. Apparently, the United States has now decided on the strategy it is going to use, which has really been the question up until this point. The Trump administration has decided, again, before, at, here they are, whether or not the United States was going to strike in a couple of missiles on nuclear sites, a couple of missiles on JDAM sites, that kind of a thing. We just don't know at this point in time what it is that the United States is going to do. Now, the Israelis in the United States appear to be finishing up military preparations. So the air defense buildup, for example, at a U.S. airbase in Jordan is nearing completion. This is one of the areas that it's suspected that Iran is in the process of dealing with possible some kind of a missile retaliation. Sorry, we're getting word that there seems to be some kind of an issue over on the live stream side of things on YouTube side. We're not entirely sure what's going on over there. You can catch us on Rumble for the live stream over at the Daily Signal in the meantime. But regarding the international news related to Iran, the United States at the present time has a couple of options on the table, all of which are military. There is no diplomatic off-ramp at this point. The president of the United States is very well aware of that. He's made this clear to media today, for example. Here was the president saying that the Ayatollah, he should probably be just a bit nervous.
Should the supreme leader in Iran be worried right now?
I would say he should be very worried, yeah. He should be. As you know, they're negotiating with us.
I know they are, but the protesters have said, where are the Americans? You promised them we would have their back. Do we still have their back?
Well, we've had their back, and look, that country's a mess right now because of us. We went in, we wiped out their nuclear.
So that's the question. If we wipe them out,
we have peace in the Middle East.
Yeah.
If I didn't take out their nuclear, think of it. If we didn't take out that nuclear, we wouldn't have peace in the Middle East because the Arab countries could have never done that. They were very, very afraid of Iran. They're not afraid of Iran anymore. We wiped out those beautiful B-2 bombers, one's right over there, those beautiful little models. Those beautiful B-2 bombers went in and they hit their target, every single bomb, and obliterated it. And because of that, they were going to have a nuclear weapon within 1 month. Within 1 month, they were going to have a nuclear weapon. That was a big threat. They're not going to have it anymore.
But if we obliterate it, what's the deal about? I mean, if there's no more, are they trying to restart the nuclear program?
Well, I heard that they are, and if they do, and I let them know, if they do, we're going to send them right back and do their job again.
So your understanding is they tried to restart it, and that's why you're threatening force?
They tried to go back to the site. They weren't even able to get near it. There was total obliteration. But they were thinking about starting a new site in a different part of the country. We found out about it. I said, you do that, we're going to do very bad things to you.
All right. So this is the Trump administration, at least from the senior level. President Trump says they do certain things we don't like. Military options are on the table. On the flip side of this, Vice President JD Vance seems to be suggesting kind of the opposite. Now, we've seen this before. We'll let this play out. This is Vice President JD Vance with Megyn Kelly today.
I am very cognizant that the Middle East leads to quagmires. Trust me, so is the President of the United States, and we're hearing that. We know that's out there. But more importantly, we know the history, and the President he has no interest in repeating the history of Iraq. What he does want to make sure is that there's a totally separate issue, which is you don't let crazy people get nuclear weapons and then lead to a nuclear arms race all over the world.
So Vice President JD Vance saying some kind of different things. Look, we're cognizant. We're not in a hurry. We're not in any kind of a rush. Diplomatic options are open. They're on the table. We've heard this kind of thing before. Vice President Vance goes out. He starts kind of signaling some different things from President Trump signaling. Here's Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying kind of a third thing regarding Iran.
The fundamental problem Iran faces and the regime faces right now is that what people are on the streets complaining about, this regime cannot address. They cannot address it because it's economic. Those problems remain. And one of the reasons why the Iranian regime cannot provide the people of Iran the quality of life that they deserve is because they're spending all their money, they're spending all their resources of what is a rich country, sponsoring terrorism, sponsoring all these proxy groups around the world, exporting, as they call it, their revolution. But I remind everybody what I've been saying through my entire career in public service. I said it in my hearing when I was asking for confirmation through the Senate. The Iranian people and the Iranian regime are very unalike. In essence, what the Iranian people want, this is a culture with a deep history. These are people that are the leadership of Iran at the clerical level does not reflect the people of Iran. I know of no other country where there's a bigger difference between the people that lead the country and the people who live there. And so our hope resides in that. As far as the president's views on the way protesters were treated, he was very clear about it. And as you saw, part of what the president said publicly prevented mass executions that were being planned and we're on the precipice of. And obviously beyond that, the president retains a number of options to how he responds to that and future events. But as far as the talks are concerned, I think the Iranians had agreed to a certain format. For whatever reason, it's changed in their system or what have you. We'll see if we can get back to the right place. But the United States is prepared to meet with them.
So what we do have is just a complete mixed signal from the upper administration, which means one of two things. Either there is a lot of confusion and a lot of uncertainty at the upper levels as to what the United States is and isn't going to do regarding Iran at all whatsoever. Or on the flip side, there's some kind of obfuscation going on here to throw some individuals off. At some point, the Trump administration is going to run up against a pretty core issue. What's the pretty core issue in this instance? If you're always doing here's the carrot, but actually we're going to hit you in the stomach. Forget the carrot, the stick. Here's the carrot. We're going to dangle it in front of you 5 seconds and we're going to punch you in the stomach. You're going to end up seeing right through that. So what does this mean for the United States diplomatic strategy? I don't know, because the president of the United States made a red line. So either this is going to turn out like some type of Obama red line situation, or he is going to carry through and has reasons for not doing so yet. I really do not know. The footage, however, that is coming out of Iran is truly horrifying. I can't share some of this stuff on screen. There's community standards that would roast me alive for sharing the way that the Iranian Islamic regime has mowed down their own civilians. It's again, truly bizarre situation. We're going to keep updating it as we get more information. Radio crew, we have to send you over to the commercial side of things. We're going to try to continue over on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, I'm going to level with you, live stream crew, for just a second. We do not have any idea what is going on regarding kind of the live stream situation. I'm getting a report that apparently I sound like a tenor on YouTube and a baritone on Rumble. We're not showing any packet loss on our side, at least as far as kind of an internet situation. So if there is an issue, it might be coming from Rumble, which is our rebroadcaster. If that's the case, if for whatever reason things shut down and kind of crash out, we'll upload this video later over on YouTube and Rumble in its entirety. Hopefully without all of the squeaks and issues and bits and blurbs that have caused grief over on other sides of things. So we'll just kind of press on and, do what we can. So those things aside, other news as far as the United States international situation, there is a major drone strike, which from the southeastern portion of Ukraine moved over into Crimea and the southwest. The United States sent out a rather interesting flag to a couple of its bases, especially in Turkey, mainly because drone systems right now are in such a serious point of warfare electronically that if drones are rerouted mid-flight, these suicide drones that are becoming a larger part of the Russo-Ukrainian war, there are concerns that they could be diverted up to perhaps 50 to 100 miles off course, according to two military intelligence experts. It's going to become a very, very interesting war if Poland and other adjacent countries to this particular conflict start getting hit with electronic countermeasures in this drone warfare. It's going to be very, very, very interesting. So those particular things aside, we might be getting hit with a denial of service attack over here on the Tony Kinnett cast. Well, by all means, you're more than welcome to attempt taking us off the air. We have other ways, my friend, of getting the show up. We'll keep you updated as we have these things posted. We are going to talk a little bit about the situation in Fulton County in Georgia and the FBI's efforts there. I also want to talk over on the situation regarding the SAVE Act, the voter ID claims that the Democrats are currently dealing with. And also Governor Gavin Newsom of California, who is, after 20 years of delays, 20 years of just sheer nonsense, now is running this huge presser tour over the California high-speed rail situation, which is certainly nothing to brag about. One particular update regarding Iran. I want to make sure that we verify this before we report this over on the show side of things here. Checking one small verification point. Just stand by with me. There are currently 2 naval craft in the Persian Gulf that are recording what may be another drone which has been shot down. We're not sure what that could be at the present time. If this would be the Iranians sending another drone to attempt to intercept the USS Abraham Lincoln, that's a waste of drone. But either way, it appears that in the maritime, at least for the private military companies, contractors, as well as the United States Navy, they're definitely keeping an eye on quite a bit. So we're going to flip over to the commercial break. We'll catch you guys in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett cast with special guest Rob Bluey.
You heard the music. It's time for Rob Bluey of the Daily Signal. He is in D.C. so that I can remain outside of that festering sewer. Rob, thanks as always for taking one for the team.
Thanks, Tony. And by the way, let me just say on that point, we really value the fact that you're not in Washington, D.C. and have your, pulse on the middle of America and everything else that's going on, because living inside this bubble, it definitely can distort your point of view.
Well, what a way to announce that we are coming to D.C. to do our show in the big studio for the State of the Union address. We'll have more details for everyone about that later, because that's not why we brought you on. Judges around the country are getting lambasted for releasing criminals, and we're talking about rapists, violent offenders, legal, illegal, out onto the streets. There is a lot of clamor for federal judges to be brought before Congress, and then to actually go past the angry letter stage and begin the impeach and removal process. What committee would this go to? How would this process even begin in earnest? I know Brandon Gill in Texas has done some stuff, but a lot of us are in the dark.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Tony. And actually, just to take a step back and remind all of your viewers and listeners that when somebody is confirmed to a federal judgeship, that is a lifetime appointment. So when you talk about impeachment, that is literally the only way to remove them. Now, in some states, you have judicial elections, and you will have a finite time period which you may serve as a judge. But when it comes to federal judge or appellate judge, or certainly the U.S. Supreme Court, that's a different set of circumstances. So when the U.S. Senate makes that decision to confirm somebody, it's a big responsibility. It's one of the reasons why there's so much attention that's usually paid on these judges. And so then what would the process be? Well, similar to other impeachment processes, you would have a situation where it would start in the U.S. House. You would have the Judiciary Committee, the relevant committee of jurisdiction, go through a process where you would have a hearing, obviously raise the concerns that you've addressed here when it comes to some of these decisions, and you need to go through a process, a trial in the U.S. Senate. And so it's one of those things that happens quite rarely. It has happened in our country's history, and typically it's not something that the legislative branch spends a whole lot of time on. However, some of the most egregious decisions that we've seen over the course of the last year, first year of the second Trump term, I think are raising the ire of people like Brandon Gill and others in Congress who say we need to have some accountability for the judicial branch.
Now, Judge James Boasberg, head of the D.C. District Court, he had been referred regarding statements that he had made that were considered extremely unethical for a judge to make. Obviously, of course, his subpoenas that he granted to Jack Smith that were, illegal to the nth degree. Now, the ethics complaint that was filed by Attorney General Pam Bondi, that's been dismissed. Maybe amid all of this news, you didn't necessarily see that was at the beginning of February. The dismissal of the complaint reads, quote, as of January 31st of 26, the Justice Department's misconduct complaint against Boasberg was dismissed. The Sixth Circuit Judicial Council, to which the complaint was transferred, noted that even if Boasberg had made these statements, they wouldn't be improper in a private closed-door meeting. How do you even begin to tackle something like that if the door is slammed in your face when you take legal recourse?
Well, and this, again, is a situation where the judicial branch is trying to police itself, and I think probably doing a fairly poor job of that.
We've investigated ourselves situation, yes.
Exactly, right. And so you would hope that there would be honest brokers who are responsible for adjudicating these ethics complaints, but in some cases, clearly, they have failed to live up to what their responsibilities are. In a situation like this, yes, if you're unsatisfied with the outcome in a situation where the court itself is not going to hold judges accountable, you can bring this to the legislative branch and you can pursue it there. Now, again, you and I both know how these impeachment proceedings usually end up, because I believe judges are the same as presidents, where you would need a 2/3 vote to right convict. And so that is a high hurdle when you have a Washington, D.C. That's as divided as it is today. Narrow, a 1-seat majority in the U.S. House, a 3-seat majority for Republicans in the U.S. Senate. And so I don't want to get anybody's hopes up that there's going to be actual people removed from the bench here. But there is just the process of going through a hearing and having somebody on the spot that may put them pressure on them to reform some of their behavior.
I want to pivot very quickly. Our time is short. 2 days ago, the Justice Department issued a statement to Judge James Boasberg, essentially telling him to go pound sand. He has no jurisdiction, says the Justice Department, over Tren de Aragua plaintiffs. He can't order the president to allow designated terrorists back into the United States. We're also seeing a merry-go-round of legal decisions about temporary protected status. How do you think that, based on the temperature of D.C., this stuff is going to shake out? Is the DOJ going to play ball, or what are we going to see here?
Yeah, I don't see Trump caving on this. I mean, these are some of the very principles in which animated his first campaign for president and certainly drove him back to the White House in the election of 2024. And so I suspect what you're going to see is President Trump telling all of his cabinet secretaries, particularly the Department of Justice, that they need to remain firm on this. They cannot give in to some of the legal antics that we're seeing play out in the courts. And there's probably a deep frustration on the part of President Trump himself, because he feels like, my goodness, we've made progress by shutting down the border. We're trying to figure out the second piece of that equation, which is actually conducting immigration enforcement. And you have these judicial activists on the bench who are throwing up hurdles right and left.
If the left side of the aisle seems to be focused so far on rehashing old arguments because there's really nothing new to bring to the table, 2026 for the right appears to be the year of the red line. And it's the question of, well, what's the red line going to be and what happens when it's crossed, whether it's regarding Iran, which of course we're covering elsewhere in the show, or whether we're talking about the DOJ. Oh, are we just going to have more angry letters? Is there just going to be a hearing? Is there going to be some fist shaking and yelling at the clouds? Or when a red line is crossed or Trump orders members of his administration, do not allow this line to be crossed, what happens? It's really weird to see this play out, and I think it's going to have a huge effect on the primaries.
It certainly will. The American people are frustrated, I think, with the inaction in Washington, D.C. I give the president a lot of credit, as you and I have talked about before, for getting that one big, beautiful bill across the finish line. I think had he not applied the pressure in a case like that, Republicans would have just procrastinated, and who knows, we could be still sitting here waiting for something to get done. I think the same has to be said of his administration. He is the one person who can make sure that his cabinet secretaries, including Attorney General Pam Bondi, hold the line on this. And he just needs to make sure that he's putting his foot down and saying enough is enough. This is what the American people elected me to do. They gave me a mandate to do this, and I'm not going to let these people on the outside obstruct and prevent me from carrying out the agenda that I promised to deliver.
Now, that sounds like a segue into the SAVE Act, but unfortunately, that'll have to be a conversation for another time. Rob Bluey, president of the Daily Signal, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tony. Good to see you.
Now, let's dive in very, very quickly here before we have to send our lovely radio crew off to the commercial break. I want to take just a brief second here and discuss some of the probably one of the most heinous stories that I have seen that have come out of the way that these judges in the country right now are just spitting on the American people. To point out again, it is so crucial that those who you elect are not just going to be there to get things done. There's been a lot of criticism about that. Oh, I really don't like these Republicans. They never get anything done. We might as well just elect a Democrat. When you put an individual from the far left into office, or even a centrist left person into office, they still appoint the furthest to the left individuals that they can possibly find. Case in point here, in New York City, an individual has now been released on no cash bail in the arrest of a brutal rape of a 14-year-old. The judge argues that just because they may have committed a rape in a New York City apartment community, that doesn't mean that he's a threat to others between now and his court date. He's just been released on cashless bail. You say, well, I mean, is this his first offense? Nope, he is a career criminal. According to the New York Post, this individual, and I'm not going to pronounce the name correctly, Jermaine Parham, age 33, was arrested in upstate New York by members of the New York Police Department assigned to the U.S. Marshal's Office in New York and New Jersey's Fugitive Task Force. On the morning of January 29th, he raped a 14-year-old girl at the building located on First Avenue and the First Avenue Loop in the private residential complex in the East Village in New York City. Now, this gets a little bit uglier when you look at the rap sheet of this individual who has a history of violent assault, battery, stealing, various crimes related to theft. We're talking about grand larceny as well. Not a threat to other individuals. Several drugstore robberies on his particular record. The judge rules, well, hey, could happen to anybody. The judge in your district matters very, very greatly. Radio crew, we're going to send you over to commercial. We're going to continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, meanwhile, over on the video side of things, we're going to take a quick look at some of the other bizarre announcements that are coming out of blue states around the country, their big strategy for 2024. One of these is Governor Gavin Newsom of California bragging that he has finally got the high-speed rail system for California ready for construction.
And when this thing is moving and it's happening and you're not taking off your damn shoes and you're not having to show your real ID and you're just hopping on, eat your heart out, Texas, that abandoned their high-speed rail project. By the way, that project that was announced a year after this one, $50 billion. They just pulled the plug on it last year. Why the hell wasn't that a headline?
Now, he's very, very upset because people in California, not just the right, but also the left, are extremely upset. For example, Assemblywoman Alexandra Macedo pointed out that the California high-speed rail budget has ballooned from $34 billion to $128 billion. $4 billion in federal funding completely down the drain. 20 years of nothing. Not a single piece of steel or concrete in the ground. Nothing on this high-speed rail project. 20 years of nothing. Yet Gavin Newsom out here announcing, well, hey, we've finally beginning construction.
They couldn't get anything done there. Big red state of Texas. Supposed to show us how to do it. They couldn't get a damn thing done. And here you are making progress. I'm just saying.
You're
Facts
just saying.
Are stubborn things. And we need to be a little bit more assertive in sharing those facts.
Let's talk about some of those facts for just a second. The Independent California High-Speed Rail Peer Review Group, what a name, in 2024, cited Governor Gavin Newsom repeatedly and consistently held off certain actions, refused to intervene on certain permits that were required because California's environmental policies are a disaster. Their construction, their union policies, their industrial policies are disasters. Gavin Newsom, a lot like Tim Walz in Minnesota, directly intervened and obfuscated in the construction of this particular project. As far as Governor Gavin Newsom running out and declaring some kind of bizarre victory here for the American people and then throwing Texas, who spent way less on this initial proposal, I don't know if this is the move. Also, the TSA removed its shoes off policy like back in June. Not even remotely useful here.
We're humble, not naive about everything in the rear view mirror. But looking forward out that windshield seems a lot brighter. And that path, guided by all your hard work and stewardship, seems a hell of a lot more certain.
Well, it's certainly not guided by train tracks. Incredible. Really, the plan here to go all in on that, I don't know if I'd recommend it. We're going to swing over, pick up the radio crew from commercial. Don't go anywhere. More to come. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
The final fistfight that is being pushed as hard as possible, in conjunction, glued to the immigration, customs, and enforcement policies that the Democrats are trying to suggest that from now on, only judicial warrants will be served, which means no federal law enforcement will ever be carried out again. While the Democrats have that they are trying to wrap their minds and mouths around, they are trying to link it, to glue it to one of the most unpopular policies that they push, which is to ban voter ID in elections or to convolute it by giving anyone and everyone voter ID, whether or not they live in the United States as legal immigrants or not. And they are pushing out consistently senators, representatives, DNC party chairs to suggest that if you ask someone to put forward an ID, which to obtain a photo ID that would satisfy the SAVE Act is free in 12 different states and under $30 in the rest of them. Still, you have individuals like Representative Brad Schneider, who comes out announcing that this is clearly a way to stop people from voting. Stupid.
I want to ask you about the SAVE Act, because that came up during negotiations on this bill. Requires in-person proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote. I'm assuming you're not in favor of that, so tell us why.
So what we know is that the requirement of identification is a way to suppress votes.
Oh, it's just a way to suppress folks, requiring ID. Incredible. Incredible move. Senator Richard Blumenthal doing the exact same thing.
It's simply a step toward totalitarian and authoritarian effort to suppress the vote. And
no, not even close. Not even close. Yeah, this is what's going to be pushed as hard as humanly possible. Oh, this is a method to keep people from voting, just asking you to bring your ID. You have to show your ID. People know this is not something that Americans are in favor of fighting. Americans like the idea of safe and secure institutions. They do. Making cuts to various agencies and organizations that Americans find to be reassuring is a bad decision. Fighting against basic safety and accountability measures is not popular with Americans. To glue this to the only political momentum that Democrats have had and enjoyed, the immigration customs enforcement protests and hearings, which again, we're going to get to in a little bit here, is a bizarre and terrible move by Blumenthal.
it goes along with his seizing election machines.
Here we go. We're going to link it to everything else. There's Fulton County, Georgia.
And voting rolls, imposing citizenship tests.
Citizenship tests. There's the argument against immigration speaking the English language, knowing very basic civics, things that other countries require.
Series of actions that are designed to suppress and maybe stop the vote.
So, what do you see on the right side of the aisle? Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Senator John Thune, what does he actually have to bring forward here? Because this is a very, very important question. The Republicans have an opportunity here. There's mush. Where there is mush, you push.
That is, should non-citizens be voting in American elections? The answer is no. And the Democrats have taken a hard position that it's okay. Now, the law already prevents that, but if that's true, then why wouldn't we want to put into law something that would require, when you go to vote, that you prove you're a United States citizen? And that's
great question. The SAVE Act should have been brought up by now in the Senate. It has not. It has instead, according to leadership itself in the Senate, been cast aside. Why has it been cast aside? Well, because they don't really want to know. I don't know if we want to go into some kind of a filibuster situation where Cory Booker might have to talk for 25 hours. God forbid.
All the SAVE Act does. And so, you know, they can cry and lament this actually being voted on, but I'd be hard-pressed to have to defend a position that doesn't believe that you have to be an American citizen to vote in an American election.
I'll finish off with the words of Speaker Mike Johnson defending the SAVE Act. This is from yesterday. Leader Thune, listen.
The SAVE Act just simply says you have to have verification of citizenship to register to vote. That's about a 90-10 issue on many of the polls in this country. And we're going to enhance it by what the president calls the Save America Act. And so it would be proof of citizenship to register to vote and voter ID, which is also about an 80 or 90% issue on the polling nationwide.
Nothing going on Capitol Hill these days. Leader Thune, I'll give you a final thought on all of it.
Well, I honestly, you know, this right now, their political base is demanding they fight with anything that President Trump wants. It is Trump derangement syndrome. It is on steroids around here these days. And even logical, commonsensical things like ensuring that if you're going to vote in an American election, you ought to be an American citizen, they're going to just instinctively oppose. So that's what we're up against. But we're going to do our best in spite of that to make sure that our government is funded and that we're putting policies in place that keep the American people safer and more prosperous.
To be clear, Leader, it does sound like you're saying that what you're describing as Trump derangement syndrome is at the highest you've seen it. So my last question to you is just, do you truly believe that the party, Democrats, would stand for a complete shutdown of DHS?
I think it's going to be very hard to defend.
All right, so the question that Americans have right now for Thune is, well, if you are in support of the SAVE Act, if you're in support of additional legislation for photo ID, then why not bring it up? Make Democrats do the filibuster. Just saying, well, we don't have the votes, so I don't know. What else are you doing right now? Not confirming people to office? There are individuals from the prosecutor role to the federal judicial role. There are slots that need filled still. So why not bring this up? What else are you up to right now? And again, I understand that there's a lot of things regarding the Senate that are up in the air. There's a lot of things that have to be negotiated and figured out. But why not force Democrats on their weakest issue at a time when you need the momentum? Force Cory Booker to get up there and stand for 25 hours without any water, any food, say if they're constipated, make himself a hero, where he screams about how voter ID is evil and how Black and Hispanic people are supposedly too stupid to go buy voter ID. Because that's the argument that's from the left. Why not force it? It's a very simple political victory. At the same time, there are certain diplomatic opportunities that, when exhausted, should be replaced by a particular series of strikes in the Middle East that make sense, that don't require big boots on the ground things. Take the win. The same when you are looking at immigration customs enforcement. Take the win. When you have an opportunity to gain considerable ground in a big year, a midterm year, a huge, huge situation like this, well, you take the win.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. One of the best moments from today, again, in this entire weird gluing together that the Democrats have decided is in their best interest to shove forward anti-voting ID stuff, while at the same time going all out against basic immigration customs enforcement, actual federal law in the United States. We had a wonderful ICE hearing. And this wonderful ICE hearing was exhausting for a number of reasons. One of the greatest things I have seen in a very, very long time is an individual who was brought forward to testify, who sounded so sullen, so serious, so just deeply important, and forgot that we actually have video of what happened. Here you go.
My name is Aliyah Rahman, and I am a resident of South Minneapolis. I'm a Bangladeshi American, born in northern Wisconsin, and I'm a disabled person with autism and a traumatic brain injury. Not all autistic brains do this, but mine fixates on sounds, numbers, and patterns.
So before we get started, I want to make two things rather clear. First and foremost, there are far too many people right now who have made it their entire personality to claim that they have autism. Some group of white coat fools decided that they were going to put every kind of mental abnormality on the spectrum. And so then, whether you have ADHD, whether you have OCD, whether you have autism, whether you are suffering from a severe hallucinatory mental illness, whether you have Down syndrome, whether you are considered mentally retarded, the actual kind, not the Chuck Schumer kind. In that particular instance, they're all the same. They're all just like weird, broad forms of autism. And it has also become in vogue on social media everywhere to claim that anything that makes you weird or quirky or interesting means that you have autism. And so then beginning your conversation by saying, hey guys, look, here's the deal. I have very severe autism, and that means that I fixate on sights and lights and sounds. She's saying that right up at the top because she needs to excuse her actions. What is this woman here for? She was dragged out of her vehicle after she parked diagonally at a 45-degree angle in the middle of an intersection to block ICE agents and other federal law enforcement from moving through the city streets in Minneapolis and carrying out their jobs. She needs to convince you, the American people, because this is filmed, she needs to convince you that actually she's just autistic. That's why she violated federal law and apparently is okay enough to drive. But man, if too many lights and sounds, oh man, then I just freeze up.
And while what the world saw happen to me exactly 3 weeks ago today on video was a terrible violation, it is still nothing compared to the horrific practices I saw inside the Whipple Center.
Okay, so oh man, I was being dragged to concentration camp. By the way, this is that lady. Yeah, that one. Anyway.
So I am here today with a duty to the people who have not had the privilege of coming home, and I offer this data because these practices must end now. On January 13th, on the way to my 39th appointment at Hennepin County's Traumatic Brain Injury Center, I encountered a traffic jam caused by ICE vehicles and no signs indicating how to get around it.
The footage, again, we have the footage. This is not what happened. You saw the same thing with the family who suggested, oh, they tear gassed us when we were on our way home from a basketball game. No, they parked on the side of the street. They got out of their vehicle. They left their children in the car and went to go riot and scream and yell. And then when tear gas came, the car's ventilation system picked it up and then ended up tear gassing their baby. All their fault. Same here. She's telling me there was this huge traffic jam. She was just trying to get to a doctor's appointment and then magically somehow ended up 45-degree angle in the middle of the intersection.
I had not wanted to pull into a blocked, chaotic intersection, but verbally agreed to do so and rolled down my window after an agent yelled, "Move! I will break your effing window!"
So the ICE officer has made it clear, you are in the middle of the road. You are blocking traffic. You need to move. If you do not, then you will be arrested. And if you think you're just going to sit in your locked car, then I will break your effing window and I will pull you out of the vehicle. And she's like, how could anyone talk to me? Don't they know who I am? This is the attitude, the entitled attitude that is blisteringly prevalent in the voting demographic on the left. It is found everywhere, from the young ladies all the way up to the angry old bitter folk on the left. It is this entitlement. How dare you speak to me? I don't have to follow laws.
His first instruction. Agents on all sides of my vehicle yelled conflicting threats and instructions that I could not process while watching for pedestrians.
So now we've updated the story a little bit. It's changing even now. So we have the ICE officer was like in the way, sort of, but there were maybe pedestrians. All of these people were shouting different things. Again, she's saying all this as though there is no footage to prove or to, debunk whatever it is that she's claiming here.
Then the glass of the passenger side window flew across my face. I yelled, "I'm disabled," at the hands grabbing at me, and an agent said, "Too late."
I'm disabled. Ah, yes. Okay, so here's a hot take here for the boys and girls at home. If you are too disabled to handle lights and noise, you are too disabled to be on the road. If every time that you hear a police vehicle or an emergency services vehicle, like an ambulance, coming down the street and you immediately freeze, lock your brakes, turn sideways, and break down, you shouldn't be on the road. You are supposed to be alert. You are supposed to be competent. And if you are so disabled, which there are a lot of people who are disabled that are not responsible enough to be on the road, if you're in a city like Minneapolis especially, call an Uber. Get someone else to take you there.
I felt immersed in a pattern, and I thought of Genoa Donald, an autistic black man killed by police during a traffic stop.
Here we go. So now we're gonna get like the really sad story. Oh, this came to my mind. I was just like I was just like Harriet Tubman, leading people on the Underground Railroad. I was just like Rosa Parks being sent to the back of the bus. I was just like. Stop it.
2021. I remembered Mr. Silverio Gonzalez.
Code switching. Yes, I remember Gonzalez de la Stella Manuel. Stop. The performative energy that encompasses all committee meetings is so insufferable.
Who was killed by ICE in his vehicle last year. An agent pulled a large combat knife in front of my face, which I thought was for cutting me.
Stupid. Stupid. So this would be the fault of two individuals. First of all, when we have said consistently the rhetoric is an issue where you decry all federal law enforcement as Nazis, you end up getting people who think that because they see a federal law enforcement officer with a knife, that means that it's a really big, scary, super duper evil Bowie, stabby, slasher knife. So that would be number one. Number two, again, we're going to see in a second the video footage of this. You can decide for yourself. But again, making very, very interesting claims.
And later learned was used to cut off my seatbelt. Shooting pain went through my head, neck, and wrists when I hit the ground face first and people leaned on my back.
Wow, it's almost like you wouldn't get out of the vehicle after you were told to drive forward. You refused to do so. And then you're getting arrested. Turns out getting arrested hurts. Getting tackled hurts. And I know a lot of soft people think that there are no consequences, and consequences only ever come with like tut-tuts and maybe a fine and a ticket. But it turns out that getting arrested, it's not warm and snuggly and comfy. Physical altercation is physical. Breaking news, more at 11.
I felt the pattern, and I thought of Mr. George Floyd, who was killed 4 blocks away. I was carried face down through the street by my cuffed arms and legs while yelling that I had a brain injury and was disabled. All
right, I'm done. I'm done listening to this because, again, the best advice, if you have a brain injury, is don't do things that will injure your brain further. Violating federal law, getting your head knocked around, probably not helpful or useful for it. So, no. Also, I'm just going to level with you. No one, when they're actually going through instances like that, are like, all of these events flashed before my eyes. I thought of Alexander the Great. I thought of Abraham Lincoln. I thought of Lionel Messi, the soccer player. I thought of Patrick Starr, and that he was not a Krusty Krab. And I remembered I, too, might someday be smacked in the head like one of the Three Stooges. Stop it. Stop it. Here's the actual video that we have showing you that she's full of crap. Now, do any of the things that she's yelled so far, we'll turn up the audio just a little bit here. Do any of those things that she has said so far sound like her just saying, I'm disabled, I'm disabled? So it seems like she's arguing with ICE. So she's being told to move. She's being told to proceed. She refuses to. And so she's arguing. None of what she said in the committee is true so far. Now, she didn't mention this either. So she sees somebody filming. He says, you need to get moving or get out of the car. So then she then points at him and goes, this is like a really bad person. So then she throws up her hands at him. And she's like, what do you want me to do? I'm not going anywhere. I've locked my door. So then we've now reached the point of you are now under federal arrest.
Get back! Hey, go that way. Hey, back the fuck up. Sidewalk.
So more honking and yelling. We're going to pan the camera back around in a second. So now she is suggesting she actually wants to go a totally different direction. They're saying you need to drive that way. You can see the man pointing. See that arm? That's forward. She refuses to drive forward. So then when they start to pull her out of her vehicle, all of a sudden she finally remembers, I can drive forward. Gee, how about I can actually start to move forward? Well, it's too late. Again, now I don't know about you, but a lot of these so tightly traffic jammed streets, if you actually do start to drive forward, it probably means there's a little bit of space in front of you, but they're pulling her out of her vehicle. Now here comes the narrative from the congressional hearing. Oh, I've been beaten and mishandled by police before. I have a disability. All you have to do in situations like this is have this conversation with the officer before. Believe it or not, even officers that are tired of these shenanigans, that are tired of your guff, your stuff, whatever, they will hear you out and say, look, I'm not going to hurt you. I just need you to follow this procedure. We have jurisdiction to direct traffic around upholding federal law enforcement in this area. You need to go this way. And if you respond, I'm just really terrified. I've had really bad altercations with cops before. What's the cop going to, I mean, seriously, find me the body camera footage where someone tells a cop that and they're acting rationally, they're acting normally. And they're like, I'm sorry, I'm just really nervous. I've had bad experiences with cops before. Can you hang on a little bit here? Show me the officer that's like, no, and then like smacks him with the baton. I have never seen that. Neither have you. She starts faking crying and then stops because she's trying to resist. Oh, did you see that? There was the knife being cut. And remember, she's like, oh, big scary combat knife. Oh, I can't believe. She starts doing a little fake cry. I'm guessing this is she's seeing him pulling out the knife. And she thinks, what? They're going to like brave harder in the middle of the street with the guy who claimed prima nocta or whatever, or like cuts his throat. Is that what she thinks they're going to do? Get out of here. And he cuts the seatbelt. I'm an autistic disabled person. She starts doing the hand motion. She's resisting. Now, I was told she was arrested and brought to the ground first. It turns out here that she was arrested up against the vehicle and then chose not to walk with federal law enforcement. So in other words, it is her own dang fault that she ended up being put on the ground at all.
This is your duty! Why don't you help that woman? Help that woman! Why don't you help someone? All you do is hurt! All you do is hurt! She's trying to drag down this fucking bridge! Where is the law?
Now they start walking away with her. Right? And then she goes dead fish. You're going to see the camera whip around now. Let's see. He gets in the car to drive forward and away. Miraculously, he just drives forward and away. And then she goes dead fish. The cameras pan over. She's being carried away because she refuses to walk. So you're going to get dragged and carried. But is that how she presented it before the House committee? Absolutely not. There is an entire campaign built around just lying to you through sound bites and little instantaneous 10-second clips and expecting you're not going to go and do the due diligence of looking for yourself. You absolutely should, because what you find are that these bleeding heart cases of people being denied their voting rights and, oh, they're signing away Taco Man's rights to getting treatment for bronchitis. By the way, if you are arrested, you will receive medical treatment for whatever it is that ails you, believe it or not. But that's just little fun facts. It's ridiculous to see them trot out all of the bizarre nonsense, believing that you're just going to trust them when they've eroded that trust ages ago. Now, there are a lot of people who are turning to something completely different. The resurgence with the youth, specifically around Catholicism, actually going to traditional, more conservative Catholic churches, Protestant churches as well, Orthodox churches. It is getting to be quite the phenomenon. And so a lot of this ends up wrapping around how you actually get resources to those people. A pleasure to be joined by Catholic Vote CEO, the one and only Kelsey Reinhardt. A lot of stuff to talk about. Heaven knows the news never stops, but you guys have a kind of a different approach towards getting some of the news and content out there into the hands of this resurgence of youth into the church. Tell us a little bit about that right off the bat.
Yeah, well, we were looking at the statistics and we saw that Gen Z is having this resurgence. In the last 2 years, interest in religion has gone from 15% to 31%. That's a huge jump. And we wanted to capitalize that and create something for them. So we created a new content platform and app called Zeal, ZEAL. PreSleep.co, a little creative spelling on that.
Nice.
And it's a phenomenal platform that combines the best of news with a little bit of podcasts, shows, and prayer.
It's one of the things right now when I see a lot of people rushing in to adding in faith to every aspect of especially getting into the political game or just really getting into being more alert as an adult. I see too much of the converts becoming the kind of zealot authority on blank social media. And so you may follow an account on social media because they say, hey, I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, I'm an indie fundy Baptist, what have you. And they have that label in their title, and then their life doesn't reflect that. Or the theology is just really askew. How do you protect against the meanderings and those claiming to proclaim the name of Christ while doing some of the other stuff instead?
Well, Tony, you might not know this about my background, but I actually spent time in religious life. So I was a nun at one point. And that time really formed me in the teachings of Jesus Christ and following him intensely in his poverty, his chastity, and his obedience, and his call to change culture. We take our Catholic values into every part of our life. And so that's what this project is.
As you should.
Exactly.
As you should.
He did not say go to the ends of the earth and stop at the ballot box or stop at media, and we've seen a lot of people do that. And even people who claim to come in his name, have a hypocrisy there that's really, really jarring. So what we've tried to do is make something that's very authentically Christian, very authentically Catholic, incredibly wholesome, but also gets at these greater goods of, civic engagement, being an informed citizen, and also just inspiring content so that you can live your faith in the public square.
One of the reasons that I'm so passionate about actually booking these kinds of interviews and having these conversations, those who have listened to the show know that I have a deep disdain for what I call shovelware. Are you familiar with the term?
No.
So shovelware is a term that was created around the turn of the century for video games or movies or music or media that was created to fill the space, but that really didn't have any value. It's just very easy if you know what you're doing to, oh, there's a new movie create a video game for it. Oh, hey, we need a Christian video game. Oh, now there's Bible Man, whatever. We need something like that. And there is good Christian content that is created oftentimes, and then there is bad or lackluster, mediocre content that is created. And that really irks me. Because, 1 Corinthians 10:31, whether you eat, drink, whatsoever you do all to the glory of God, it should meet a level of excellence. And the Christian content that is produced should be as good, if not better, than what the world creates. So with the creation of zeal here, how are you guys going to maintain a standard of like some of the really excellent stuff as opposed to kind of the shovelware? And I don't mean that as an insulting question, but it's, it's something that people often say, ugh, another Christian app, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, no, I think audience feedback is going to be key for us. We're borrowing a page from Angel Studios in the sense that, we're going to have our audience say to us, hey, what do you think about this quality, this content, this show? Do you want to greenlight a second season? We're donor supported. So, that's really going to drive what we do. And I'll just mention, we have a show called Forgotten USA. And what it does is it actually follows communities, persons, heroes who've been left behind by the cultural, economic, and moral shifts in our country. And it shows these heroes in these places. We sent a producer to Hurricane Helene Ground Zero 3 days after the hurricane. And what he captured there in the first 2 episodes of this flagship show for America 250 on Zeal is incredible. He captured heroes helping their neighbors. Why? Because FEMA had abandoned the people there. And the neighbors showed up. They helped each other out. They rebuilt. They're talking about this one man in his 90s who has a backhoe helping, a tractor helping, to clear out some of these really overgrown roads and whatnot. And so, I think that if you're capturing authentic human stories, that's what people like. It's the storytelling element there that makes quality content. And that story is always based upon, the good, the true, and the beautiful, the things that Christ represented in his own stories. Even our telling of villains, is important because of the way that it helps us learn to form our emotions, like to hate what should be hated and love what should be loved, which is, Aristotle says that's the whole purpose of poetry and theater. And we've taken that and we've made that as the backbone of what we do in creating these stories. So I agree with you. We can't let the story be lackluster, because then the product will be lackluster.
You got to be an ambassador. You need to do it properly. One final question here, just again, to make sure that I actually get this answered. Where do people find this? When is the launch? How does this thing get access here?
Yeah, we launched last week to great great conversion rates. It's an app, so you can find it in the Apple Store and Google Play. It was trending in the Apple Store actually all last week after its launch.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's also available on desktop and mobile at www.zeal.co. So any way you choose to consume your content, we're there, and we look forward to seeing you.
Awesome. We'll make sure that's in the Chiron and, of course, the description for the show. Again, Kelsey Reinhardt, Catholic Vote CEO. Can't thank you enough for giving us a little bit of your time here. Thank you for your work on Zeal. We look forward to seeing what you do with it.
Thank you so much, Tony. God bless.
All right. Now, I know tonight has been just a bit bizarre. The show, we've had some issues we're still trying to figure out on the tech side. This is a little bit of what I'll kind of file off here at the end. We have some incredible stuff we didn't even get to this evening. Maxine Waters, Representative California, Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, just went toe-to-toe in committee today, which was wild. Representative Meeks and Scott Bessent went at it as well. And then, of course, Kamala Harris appears to be maybe announcing that she's running for re-election. Like, that announcement may be coming tomorrow. This video was just uploaded a couple of minutes ago. It's just like a login screen. Kamala HQ Project 2025 was real. It was always real. As one of the minor authors. Yeah, pretty cool book. Uh-oh. Kamala HQ username, password headquarters, logging you in tomorrow. That's it. So maybe she's going to run for the Senate. I don't know. Going to be beautiful. Maybe she's going to run for the presidency. I hope so. Oh, man. All right. A lot of stuff to cover. We'll get into that as well. Obviously, if for some reason we have major breaking news in between now and then, we'll go live a little bit earlier. So thanks for sticking with us. Appreciate every one of you. Take care. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC.